Jonathan's wonderful. He's one of my dear friends. We worked together on The Librarians, but he directed several episodes of Falling Skies as well. He's a very prolific television director and he's just a beautiful guy. He takes his work seriously but doesn't take himself too seriously. He's one of those guys you can work hard with all day and then go out and play hard with all night. Ever since I gave up therapy, it's my only time with a captive audience. A cameo in Doctor Who would be kind of cool to have on my filmography. Anytime I go to a hospital, the doctors treat me like an equal, and I'm terrified I'll be in the delivery room, and the doctor will say, Noah, why don't you get a hand in here? And I'll pass out or throw up and be horribly embarrassed. I'm a huge history buff. It was no hardship to read history textbooks for homework. I remember somebody asking me in an interview years ago if I would be interested in playing Jason Bourne. I laughed. I didn't think anybody would want to see me run around with a machine gun. It always stayed in the back of my head that I had reacted like that. It bothered me. I knew I'd be back at some point. I didn't come back at all the 13th and 14th seasons, and then I think I ended up doing 6 of the 15th and final season, which was so great. Talk about closure. To not be on that show and have that show be on TV was horrible. It was like watching somebody else raise your kids. But I was raising my own, and that was amazing. I don't have any regrets. That is exactly what happened. The Librarians is a show that really needs to have 10 days, but we shoot it in 7, so the workload is really tremendous, and we don't really quite have the budget to really give it the production value that it deserves, so we try to be as resourceful as we can. I'm a product of the city for sure. I'm a guy who never wanted to hold a steady job, because I was worried about the monotony. If I didn't have a family, I don't know that I would never not be in a hotel room working. It's difficult to leave something that's special. So when you leave, you either leave because you have something more important, like a son, that is amazing. There's also a show called The Red Line, shot in Chicago. That's a diverse show, staffed by people of color and women and people with disabilities, as if this has never been done before. We moved away from something that could have worked really well and did work well, and now we're figuring out that it's not only necessary, it's on trend. I think Maura Tierney was the best actress I've ever worked with. She just is an amazingly facile performer and I enjoyed every scene she and I played together. When I was in high school, I wrote a play that I sent off to a competition that took second place. I got a check for $100. I never cashed it, because obviously, it was worth way more than $100. Going forward, I have 4 different ways of approaching what I want to do. I can generate my own material by writing. I can produce, direct, act, or do a combination of these things, mixing it up. To be sandwiched between Jane Curtin and Bob Newhart for a couple weeks is phenomenal. When I got to sit in Big Bird's nest with Big Bird and sing a song, sing out loud, that was my crowning achievement. My mother was an orthopedic nurse for 20 years, and she forbade all of us children to ever get on a motorcycle, and we listened. I'm the artistic producer of the company. Daniel Henning is the artistic director. I've been involved in that company since its inception 25 years ago. We're still going strong. For such a small company, we have a very nice national reputation, a very active board of directors. I was incubated in this wonderful environment of diversity and inclusivity and pushing storylines that were way more progressive than anything else on television 20 years ago. It's ironic that this is the order of the day because we not only did it, but we became the most successful television show in the world doing it. You'd think it would be a replicated model. And yet, here we are. The Librarians fills a vacuum, providing true family programming for TNT. Falling Skies was mostly night work in winter in Toronto. It was cold and wet, and we were filthy. ER was an all-consuming universe, but I don't have a single regret. It gave me some of the greatest friendships I have and afforded me one of the rarest commodities in an actor's life, which is the financial security to pick and choose jobs for factors besides the paycheck. After having played serious drama for so long, I needed to scratch the itch of versatility. Boy, oh, boy, people get jaded fast. I got nominated for an Emmy. I make a point of not logging into websites that give spoilers. I find directing so incredibly rewarding and challenging and humbling and exciting and engaging. Scenes become challenging. Actors bring out the best of you. Circumstances demand you dig deep. Science fiction, in its purest form, for me, it works the best when it's being used as metaphor to look at something from a one-step removed process, to give a little objectivity and insight into something that, if you were applying it on the face of it, we'd all be too close to. I'm thinking about naming my first son Emmy so I can say I've got one. I want Emmy, Oscar and Tony, and my daughter Grammy. I love directing. I love writing because I can do it from home and be with my kids and my wife, sleep in my own bed. I grew up on all the Star Wars movies and Star Trek and all that. I just haven't really kept current. The trick to playing Steve Jobs? I don't know. There are two things you want to bear in mind whenever you play a real-life character. One is your responsibility to that person and to their families because you're depicting them in something that's not going to go away, ever. And the second is not to do an impression, not to just mimic them but to figure out emotionally how to convey an essence of their life from a truthful place. I had apprehensions of playing Jobs in Pirates of Silicon Valley. TNT was really excited about me taking the part, but I had worries I usually didn't have as an actor. So many times in television, you get cancelled arbitrarily as a result of your ratings in the off-season, and you don't have an opportunity to really script your ending, which can leave it an unsatisfying situation for both participants and the audience. With any project, but especially in television, I always try to look at where the character is starting from and where he's going to end up and try to find the biggest arc that makes it the most exciting to play. I think when you are named Noah, you are destined for a certain way of life. I was not necessarily the best student. I was not necessarily the favorite kid. I wasn't necessarily the most responsible or the most ambitious, and suddenly, when you get given celebrity, you get anointed with all these lovely qualities that you don't have, necessarily, but everyone assumes you must because you're successful. It's weird, I actually like doing interviews now,